Welcome to the Flicks Picks to the Nitpicks, and I am your humble host, Nov718, and we're going to get into the infamous episode that I think a lot of people are not going to like, but it's going to be something that I think everybody needs a moment to sit down, give it a listen, and entertain me for a few minutes, because this is going to be the strange case for Walter HAMADA. Next up on Just to Talk, so let's just get into it, man. So look at this. I remember I was on a show on another YouTuber's panel, and I happened to raise a question because I didn't understand what was this adamant hate for Walter HAMADA. And this is coming from a guy that's a Zack Snyder cut part of that whole movement, if you will, and I say that very loosely because I wasn't part of like a group of different people. I was just a dude that was just very, very strangely interested into the backstory and the involvement of the Snyder Cut, because I actually was really following what he was going to do. I never really looked at myself as a fan of Zack Snyder, but over the time, finding out what we could have had and all the stories that went behind it and all the drama as it unfolded, I slowly followed myself into something that would be considered the Snyder Cut movement. I wasn't a card carrying person. I didn't have online meetings and, FaceTime video recordings and posted it. I didn't get on panels, but I was just a fan of it. So over time, as the Snyder Cut's coming out, and we already know what was gonna happen, and we're moving forward from it, this strange thing started happening where Walter HAMADA became the scapegoat of all things bad from not moving on with the Snyder Cut. Which, to be quite honest, the idea was we just wanted whatever they had so we could see it, and that was it. And then it strangely evolved into this, F Walter HAMADA not paying attention to the fans. It's like, wait a second, well, which fans? Because remember, if the fans were always there wouldn't have been a Walter HAMADA. People strangely forget. So when I was on the panel, there was a gentleman that wanted to really explain to me that Walter HAMADA had something to do with racism, and he was taking this based on something that he got within context of something that Ray Fisher had spoke on. But since he seemed to know so much about it, I kept asking him because he kept telling me, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I said, then just let me know. All right, what did he do? What did Walter HAMADA do? Well, and he's talking about things with Jeff Johns. And I said, all right, that's Jeff Johns. What did Walter HAMADA do? Well, Jeff Johns is a racist and, et cetera, which I'm like, all right, I don't know that to be true. I'm asking because it seems like you guys seem to have this venom or have an idea where this venom came from for Walter HAMADA, because I always noticed that Walter HAMADA gets shitted at. And my thing was Walter HAMADA had nothing to do with the Snyder Cut. He wasn't even around for that. Matter of fact, Kevin Suggeestions was the guy that came after the whole fallout from him, when all the guys had quit or was getting fired because of a merger prior to AT&T, if I'm not mistaken. Before AT&T bought the WB, there was another regime that came in. So it was like, well, if Walter HAMADA didn't even show up right after everything that happened with the Snyder Cut and everything with the Justice League film thing, that was Kevin Suggeestions came before that, and he didn't have nothing to do with it. Then how do you blame Walter HAMADA? He's doing his job. He was brought in to redirect the company in another direction. That was essentially his come up. That was his promotion. This guy got promoted to a position that we won't even allow him to do his job. This is almost like Zack Snyder all over again, but we're doing it to Walter Hamada, but with a certain level of venom that he doesn't really deserve. Now, if you want to argue through Ray Fisher, don't get me wrong, just because I might not see what Ray Fisher sees doesn't mean that he's not telling the truth, but I read everything that Ray Fisher spoke on. And whether I agree or not, I do believe that he feels like he's standing on something. I do believe that he feels that he's owed an apology. I just don't understand what would Walter Hamada be apologizing for, because he had nothing to do with the Justice League fiasco. He came after that. Is it because he wants to redirect the company in another direction? Well, that's what he was hired specifically to do. So you can hate him for it, but he's literally doing his job. That was a promotional gig. He got promoted from the horror division to this. So I don't understand how I would hate a guy that's just essentially doing what he was promoted to do, and then call for him to lose his job because he's doing it. Doesn't make sense to me. Whether I agree with the direction he's going in or not, I'm not excited about an Our Man movie, but I get why he would do it. He was brought in because he could make a strong flip with a smaller budget, and he has done it before with horror, so this was his promotional job. So again, why are you mad at Walter Hamada for doing exactly what Walter Hamada was designed to do? He didn't come in and lie to anyone and say, well, I'm going to go do this, and then he flipped and did something else. He was hired for exactly what he was designed to do. And that was that. Now, if we're going to say that, well, he had a conversation privately with Ray Fisher, whereas he said, yo, look, I know that Jeff Johns is racist, but we got to work with him, yada, 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 yada. So now Ray Fisher wants to make it an argument about protecting Jeff Johns. Well, Walter Hamada owes me an apology. And it's like, whoa. He was promoted. He didn't hire Jeff Johns. If I'm not mistaken, Jeff Johns was in a higher position than him. Or he was in a position in which that he couldn't take his job. So if I can't take his job, well, if he's in a position where he cannot take his job, then how can you expect Walter Hamada to be able to do much anything else but try to do his best to mend old bridges? He was trying to go past the Justice League. At that moment, the Flash movie still had Ray Fisher in it. So it's not that he didn't want Ray Fisher. He initially wanted Ray Fisher to be part of it. But because Ray Fisher wanted to disclose a private conversation to the world for a reason to force Walter Hamada into apology for something that he had absolutely nothing to do with, all he was trying to do was mend old bridges. Now, to be fair, and I shouldn't have to argue nothing. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to make prefaces, because it should be pretty obvious that no one has any tolerance for racism. But we all work with racist bosses. That's my argument to it. You might not be able to prove that they're racist, but we work for these guys. We have to deal with them. A lot of people have jobs right now dealing with racist motherfuckers, and you are not quitting. You're not demanding apologies. You're not demanding anything. You're just dealing with the job until they do something actually exercising racism at the job. We just move forward and work. Just keep it respectable. That's what Walter Hamada was saying, more than likely, because unless Jeff Johns did something explicitly racist that you could actually put your finger on, there's nothing you could do. They were able to do something about Joss Whedon, because Joss Whedon had a lot of bad press coming out after the bad press from the Justice League that was making him look all types of bad in terms of relationships with female co-workers and all the rest of it. His relationship with his wife, his ex-wife, came out and wanted to throw dirt on his name. It just became a whole S show. So what was we gonna do? What were we gonna do with that? They was able to drop him and make him the scapegoat for everything, but they wanted to keep Geoff Johns. Why? Because he was their comic book guy. Walter HAMADA didn't know comics. He came from horror division. He needed Geoff Johns to help him with the comic books, wherever he needed to understand what the comic books for. As far as Walter HAMADA was concerned, he was trying to take whatever they were working with and trying to bring it back together. And if one of them was racist, he was willing to be like, yo, look, let's all get together and make this work. We ain't gotta be friends, but let's make this work. You don't have to really deal with Geoff Johns directly. Let's make this work type of attitude. That's just where he was coming from with it. And I get Ray Fisher, oh, you trying to protect this racist mofo, F it. Well, I don't want to work with you. You stymied what was it, the WB probe that they had to investigate what went on at the Justice League. But remember, what went on at Justice League, even though Geoff Johns had stuff to do with the writing and all of that and where they wanted to go with it, Geoff Johns I don't think he was on set. And then the only thing that you could bring up was, at least the gentleman that I was talking to on the panel, only thing that he could really legitimately bring up was, something to the effect that Geoff Johns wanted him to say booyah. And then I was like, well, come on, man. You want to say that's racist? If that's the case, then booyah should have been a conversation that we should have talked about before the Justice League even came out. Even I knew, and I didn't grow up with reading Justice League with Cyborg and all that, but I knew where the Cyborg booyah came from. And if I could figure that out, that was his catchphrase, that everyone knew that was his catchphrase coming out, it was expected that he would say it in the film at some point in time. Now, if the argument is that Ray Fisher felt that he should have had more contribution towards these characters, yeah, because that's how it was presented to you, yeah, but it was presented to you that way when Zack Snyder was involved. When he sat down and spoke with you and wanted to figure out how can we represent this character that we've never seen before to the big screen. But he was removed. Joss Whedon came in to recut a whole film and do the reshoots and make it cohesive in 6 months. He wasn't gonna be a good friendly person. He had a short time. It makes sense that it wasn't going to be an easy environment to work with, because he had to handle recutting the whole film, reshooting the whole film, rewriting and reweaving a whole entire movie that was already going one direction and changing up the tone and everything all in 6 months, and still somehow come out with all these notes that he was given via Geoff Johns, who was trying to basically usurp and perform a coup so he could be basically the Kevin Feige of the series. You think they were going to sit down and say, hey, let's sit down with Ray Fisher, the actor, his first motion picture movie, and really feel like we need to lean in on this character that, unfortunately, even though he might have been the heart of Zack Snyder's Justice League, he wasn't the heart of the Joss Whedon cut. And I'm sorry to say, you weren't involved. That's not a surprise. No one owes you an apology. No one owes you any of that. Yeah, the original director, you signed on with these pre-negotiated ideas and already a relationship that wasn't going to roll over into the new regime. I could have told you that, and no one owes you that. And that's what I think Ray Fisher really needed to understand. It's not all about you. Yeah, this was the film that you was going to do with Zack Snyder, but Zack Snyder's no longer involved. So unless you were willing to quit at the moment, which integrity, if it was about integrity, you would have quit on site and took on anything that would have went with it at the time. But you didn't. You went through with it. Why? Because you was willing to go along to get along. I watched the original version. You said booyah. You didn't storm off the set. You did it. We're just here now, and now that you're doing the hindsight 2020 shuffle, and I'm not knocking it because you now have an opportunity to stand on what you didn't believe you wanted to do, but you did it. So you're mad that Walter HAMADA was willing to play ball with the same regime? You were. That's my point. Because it was business. Because at the end of the day, this is not your property. You had to do the job. Walter HAMADA, he came in to perform a job. That was it. Everybody thinks that he's out to get people. Now, I do believe it got personal over time, but the constant bickering, the constant coming at Walter HAMADA, eventually, wouldn't you just want to say, you know what, I would rather be done with it. Ray Fisher doesn't want to be part of the film, fine, but he want to keep saying my name. You know what, I don't want to work with him either. I wanted to work with you before. I owe you an apology for what? I didn't do anything to you. All I did was try to bring this together and dead this and keep your job, keep you with your job. Albeit, now I'll say this, Walter HAMADA could be many things. He could be a dick, but that don't mean that he's an asshole. Give him credit for what he did do. Don't discredit the man because he didn't do what you wanted him to do. That he didn't move the way you expected him to move. He didn't approach the film the way you would have preferred him to approach the film. You can't expect that. No one can. I couldn't have. I wouldn't have. Because at the end of the day, he's a worker. He's doing his job. He's brought in to do a job, a specific job, a task. And you can't expect him to do nothing less but that. I didn't understand why we hate Walter HAMADA to the degree that we do. I'm not a fan of Birds of Prey, but I don't think that these guys are out here making these movies specifically to fail. But he was brought in specifically to do that job. And though I would like them to move on from Walter HAMADA, I'm not going to sit here and shit on the man's name like I know him personal when he's never said anything directly to insult anyone. But we've got plenty of videos of us saying a whole lot about him as a fan base that likes to put it on the name, the Snyder Cut fan base. We put that in name on the fan base. We promote those type of negative attributes. I remember one thing that, and this is what I really want to get in on, and one day I'm going to really dive deep. I'm going to touch on this and this because it's relevant. I remember I was in a comment section. I was talking to someone with the Walter HAMADA joint. And I told people, I said, I was trying to get a lot of people that was of note in the Snyder Cut fandom, trying to tweet them and tell them, yo, after the Snyder Cut was released, we should thank the WB. That should be the next hashtag. Thank you, WB, for releasing the Snyder Cut. Thank you, Walter HAMADA, for releasing the Snyder Cut. Now, a dude in the comments section had wanted to say, well, we don't owe him nothing, and he should thank you. It was AT&T that did it, yada yada yada. Mind you, you can find on my Twitter account that I have a hashtag saying thank you AT&T for releasing the Snyder Cut. There's a reason why, and people don't understand. And this is the problem with the Snyder Cut fan base, that they do not understand that they had an understanding of in the very beginning. And when I was on the panel, I didn't realize that Fiona, the person that created the hashtag, had a falling out within the fandom. And I can see why, because the moment that people wanted to move on from we got the Snyder Cut, that's what this was about. And now it turned into restore the Snyder Cut because people didn't want to stop the fight and keep pushing forward, which that was initially what we negotiated. But I'm not mad at it because I would like the Snyder verse to continue going as out of the mind and preset of what Zack Snyder was designing with his kind of DNA over it. But that's not what we were asking for in the beginning. Now we're becoming pushy. But if we're going to be that kind of pushy, at least thank the people that actually released it, even if they did it under duress. Thank WB for releasing it. That's how you walk away a good sportsman. Shake hands. This is how you sell the fandom as being not only adults about stuff, just being positive, thanking them. What's wrong with thanking them? It cost you nothing, but this guy really wanted to argue me how they didn't deserve thanks and all of this stuff. Meanwhile, expecting them to give you what you want. You don't want to thank them, but you want them to give you what you want. You don't. This ain't even your property. You want them to do with their property what you want them to do. Well, the least you could do is thank them. Even if they weren't responsible, put it in name. Let them know that you're willing to work with them. But please bring back Zack Snyder. We'll bring the fan base. We'll bring you the positive talk. Give us Snyder. Make Snyder a part of this. Shepherd this. You never know. Then guess what? Zack Snyder, now that he's got an army of people willing to watch him, look at them trending. If they could make Walter Hamada's name trend in a positive light, what do you think that wouldn't have been buttering up the roll? Shoot, you gotta give people forget you in order to get some bees, you need to put out the honey. They didn't want to put out the honey. You want to be assholes and dickheads and curse people and yell at them and say, give us what we want. We demand it. And they give it to you, and then you have the cock of the walk about it. And it's like, why does it have to be that way? Why can't it be, thank you for releasing the Snyder Cut? Look, man, we trying to see Snyder come back to the fold, man. And if he comes back to the fold, you got an audience here willing to ride with you, WB. There it goes. There it goes. That's how you do it. You don't go in antagonistic. See, this is what the fandom wants. They want a lot of blood. They want bloodshed. They want arguments and fights and stuff like that. And that's the thing that I think that's not helping the fandom. It makes the fandom look a certain kind of way. It breeds a lot of negativity, and it makes it par for the course for that being the only way that we could communicate with the execs, by making shots at each other. So soon enough, once you piss them off on their own property, you know what they'll do? They'll go take their toys away. And then you get mad they walk away with their toys. They're not acquiescing towards your demands. They're not giving you what they want. And it's like, well, why would they when you've been antagonistic this whole ride through? You didn't even know how to win with valor, win with some sort of grace. That's the point. You get more bees with honey, man. Now with Ray Fisher, look, man, I do believe that he feels that he's doing the right thing. And for all intents and purposes, if I'm wrong, I think that he needs to continue to stand on it. I wasn't there. But from what he's disclosed, I did not get racist from Walter Hamada. What I did get was a company man. He can't fire Jeff Johns. He's not interested in firing Jeff Johns. He doesn't want to get rid of Ray Fisher. He's not interested in getting rid of Ray Fisher. Because remember, if he was racist, he would have he would have got rid of you from the very beginning. But that wasn't his intentions. It was the fallout after it. Was he trying to protect Jeff Johns? I'll give you this. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. Why would you hire your own investigative team to investigate yourself? Yeah, we already know. But remember, Jeff Johns had the high ground. We don't know if there was nothing Walter Hamada could have done. Remember, he got promoted to that position. Jeff Johns was already there in the building. No one knows if he had the power to usurp Jeff Johns at the time. Remember, Jeff Johns was high up in the company to begin with. He was handling the rewrites of Justice League. So how could Walter Hamada just assume that he could come in and do that? And for all we know, Walter Hamada might have got the promotion because of Jeff Johns. Again, we don't know. So what was he supposed to do? The best he could do was try to mend both fences and get them both together and on board on the same page. Ray Fisher stuck to his guns. He didn't want to F with Jeff Johns, and Walter Hamada couldn't get them both together. So even with the investigation, there was probably not much Walter HAMADA could have done in the way of that, because at that time Jeff Johns was not set up to have his walking papers. They wanted to keep him around, and I'm sure it was people above Walter HAMADA's pay grade, the same people that had given him the promotion. We don't have that information out there and disclosed. So everything else is there for commentary, open commentary. But to sit here and say that, because even the gentleman that I was on the panel with, he could not at all tell me what Walter HAMADA had anything to do with racism. And I think he even realized it in the conversation, because I think that's where he got frustrated at, and I got annoyed because he kept saying, I don't know, like a brother like me don't know nothing about racism, which really kind of ticked me off. But because I understand, because my thing is, if you don't have an answer, just say you don't have an answer, but stop parroting the same thing over and over again, because you're not really coming to the proper accord. We're not going to get to an accord. You're trying to tell me that he has something to do with racism, fine, but tell me what is racist. If you can't do it, then just say, well, look, I believe he is, I can't prove it, but I'm going to stand with Ray Fisher, and then that would make sense. You're being honest that you don't have the one-to-one correlation to it, but you believe in it. Now, he did give some examples of Jeff Johns, which I have to look into, because they said something about he was being very insensitive about black people's hair when it came to doing the Superman prequel that they did on Sci-Fi Channel, when which was supposed to take place during Jor-El's time, or one of Superman's ancestors, the House of El and the House of Zod. So I don't know. He gave some information I'm gonna go look into. I've yet to go look into it, so to be fair, but everything he said and everything that he had to do with introducing his quote unquote evidence everything was surrounded by what Jeff Johns. Everything was Jeff Johns. Not one thing he said had anything really directly to do with Walter HAMADA, which was the initial question I had. What does Walter HAMADA directly have to do with anything racism? And I think everybody on the panel started to realize maybe we made a gross overestimation with Walter HAMADA, because I swear I heard that same gentleman on another panel now, and he was talking a lot different. And I think he understood. One of the brothers in the comment section was like, well, if Ray Fisher said it's racism, let's ride. And I understand about riding, but I don't want to ride for any old thing. And that's my thing, because we shouldn't be devaluing the word racism, because everybody is overusing it and pimping it. And though I don't want to turn the nature of this conversation into something that it don't need to, because I want to keep this about positivity, I have to be honest on just a talk, because it came up on just a conversation, and that's part of the reason why a lot of people are bundling their hate for Walter HAMADA, spinning off of his issues with Ray Fisher, and Ray Fisher saying that he felt that there was a lot of racism or allowing of racists to get by. And you could argue that with Walter HAMADA, but I don't think that there's a definitive reasoning outside of a disclosed personal conversation where Walter HAMADA said, I know he's racist, but we got to work with him. Well, you're hiding him and you're protecting him. It's not so much, is that really Walter HAMADA hiding and protecting him, or is he just being the voice of the company? Because, again, like I said, he was promoted to this position. He wasn't even around for any of this. So even if it was true or not, and he could have felt like, yeah, I think he is, but we got to deal with this. And to be fair, most people have to deal with some racist person at their job, and you have to still come back to work and deal with it. Now, Ray Fisher, I respect that he felt on his integrity. He said, look, F it, I don't care about this. You know, what does he says? Accountability over entertainment, and he's willing to stand and fall on the sword for that, and that's commendable. But I think there's making it about Walter Hamada was a poor choice. Making this about Walter Hamada, he needed to make this stance about the person that actually is the true culprit. Yeah, there's people that allow for these guys to get by, but you could argue that even us that go, the rank and file that go to work, that deal with racism at our job, because we have to deal with it. There's no one that's gonna listen to us. I'm not mad that Ray Fisher made this stance. I'm just saying that I don't think that Walter Hamada is a proven racist. I think he's more of a company man, and like I said, he could be a dick, but that don't make him an asshole. And this is not about protecting Walter Hamada. The question is what did Walter Hamada do that's racist? And if we can't really put that on his name, that he boxed someone out from work, and it's not like he sided with Jeff Johns and didn't want Ray Fisher to have a job. He was trying to keep them both together. That's what I heard. So when I heard it, I was like, oh, he's just being a company man. He has to mend ships because this is now his house, and he's got to put out all the flames. And he was doing whatever he had to do to keep people together. He might not have even believed that Jeff Johns was racist. He probably said, hey, he probably is, but he probably said he was, but said whatever he can say, because at the end of the day, he needed Ray Fisher. He needed Jeff Johns. And I think that was what his job was supposed to do. You know, he was supposed to redirect the direction of the franchise. He was going to use all the same actors. And what is the first thing you got to do? Well, I got to mend old ships. I got to make this right and get people back on par, because now all the business and all the inside turmoil that was going on